For over a year now, universities have been in the crosshairs of the federal government.
President Trump made new threats today to Harvard University after the federal government froze billions of dollars in funding. Harvard rejected
The administration sent a letter to 9 U.S. universities asking them to pledge support for the Trump administration's political agenda or risk losing access to federal funding.
From funding fights to lawsuits, the Trump administration has flexed extraordinary influence over higher education in America. And it's added fuel to the national conversation about what should be taught at colleges. And recently, that argument entered a new and personal place, the classroom.
A lot of this stuff that's happening is unprecedented, and people are very concerned about this mounting level of surveillance that's happening.
At the state level, a wave of new policies have been introduced that professors say are undermining their academic freedom. And North Carolina is front and center.
Administrators are coming to them and telling them, this is how it will be. You have no other outlet. Sit there, accept it, teach.
I'm Anissa Khalifa. This is The Broadside, where we tell stories from our home at the crossroads of the South. This week, who controls what can be taught in a college classroom? Hey y'all, just a quick note here. WUNC News, which produces The Broadside, is an associated entity of UNC Chapel Hill. We maintain editorial independence in all news coverage.
Hi, I'm Brianna Atkinson, and I cover higher education for WUNC.
For the past few months, Brianna has been pounding the pavement, talking to faculty at colleges in North Carolina. And she's heard one thing over and over.
There has been a mounting pressure for professors. They're feeling surveilled and not only watched, they're also feeling targeted. So it's very tense.
Brianna says this is a response to a flurry of policy changes in the UNC system, a collection of 16 North Carolina universities, all under one administrative umbrella.
It's kind of happening back to back to back. They feel like they can't catch their breath because every week there's something else that they feel like is chipping away at the freedoms and the rights that they've had as faculty.
So what are these new policies raising alarms in academic circles? There are 3 big ones. The first only pertains to one school, UNC Chapel Hill. It's a new rule that allows administrators at the university to secretly record faculty without their knowledge or consent.
If there's permission from the provost and from the head of HR, this is what administrators say are under extremely rare circumstances, but they haven't defined exactly what said circumstance would look like.
The second change is a new definition of academic freedom for the entire UNC system.
So the definition itself, I have it written down so make sure that I say it right. But it's a principle that protects the rights of faculty to engage in teaching, research, and scholarly inquiry without undue influence. However, the UNC system has added quite a few parameters to that definition. Some of the things that they've said is if you talk about controversial ideas, keep them related to your subject matter. You have to also make sure you meet accreditation standards. But that prevents faculty from fully having academic freedom, or so they say. And they don't really know where the stops are.
And the third change is a big one. It requires all professors in the UNC system to publicly post the syllabus for their classes.
Not only are they public records, but they're going to be in a searchable database. So if people want to find hot button topics, hot button issues, they can just go in the search bar and type something.
Right.
And if they want to make an example out of a professor to maybe encourage professors not to necessarily teach these topics anymore, that could happen.
So what are the administrators at the UNC system saying are the reasons behind all of these policy changes?
UNC System President Peter Hahn says that there's a lot of scrutiny in higher education. There's a lot of people that are taking interest in what's being taught in the classroom, and he's saying that this is an effort to promote transparency while this scrutiny is happening. But faculty have a different opinion about that.
Has anything like this ever happened before in the UNC system?
No, it has not. Before now, specifically with the syllabi regulation, individual campuses could come up with their own one, but a lot of this stuff that's happening is unprecedented.
But North Carolina is by no means the only place with new rules tied to academic freedom. Similar policies are being instated at universities throughout the South.
Major changes are coming this semester when it comes to what can be said on race and gender in Texas classrooms. This comes after a new Texas law.
A new University of Florida policy meant to promote free speech may eventually raise questions for some professors. TV20's Kayla Lewis tells us.
This isn't the first time something like this has happened. There's other things that have started either originating in Texas and Florida that North Carolina has also kind of jumped on board with. There's secret recordings happening in Texas classrooms. Like there's a professor who was fired for a class that she had on children's literature. She had a gender ideology lecture in her class, and she was fired after somebody recorded that and complained. So this is all interconnected.
What's at stake here with these policy changes?
What I've heard from professors is it's kind of creating a climate of fear. There's a concern that the classroom isn't going to be this same free exchange of ideas because people are going to be afraid and they're going to be scared. Or a lot of times academics will mention the chilling effect. Essentially, if people are so scared to say something, they rather would err on the side of precaution and never say this controversial thing or never bring up this controversial topic in their class out of fear of there being some type of retribution. And that can stifle just the creativity that goes on in classes, and it can impact how students interact, how they engage, how they learn.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking back to my own experience as a student when I wanted to challenge my professors, but I probably wouldn't speak up if I knew that was potentially going to be recorded. I mean, it's not the teachers only, right? It's also like, what if the students have some thoughts out loud that they're not quite sure about, and then somebody's recording that, and then like the whole world knows about it?
No, exactly. And I also had that experience in college too, where like sometimes you don't have a fully cooked idea and you want to talk about it with your classes. But think about like if you're in a philosophy class, you're talking about these moralities, these ethics, things that don't have like a clear-cut answer.
So these policies are new, but some professors in the UNC system have already had to deal with the effects of this kind of surveillance that you're talking about. You spoke with a business professor about his recent experience.
Yes. So Christopher Petsko, he teaches organizational behavior at UNC Chapel Hill. Before the UNC system had a rule that all syllabi are public records, there was a group, a watchdog group known as the Oversight Project that was kind of trying to get their hands on some syllabi from a select few faculty at UNC Chapel Hill. Dr. Petsko was one of the people that they wanted a syllabus from. He said that he didn't want to turn his syllabus over to them. They got it through other means, and they put part of the syllabus on X. And on that thread, they highlighted 2 weeks out of his business course that he had, where he focuses on stereotyping and prejudice in the workplace, because organizational behavior essentially looks at how people interact in a business. And they pulled that out from his syllabus. They used it as an example of what they said was, quote, wasteful DEI garbage that went against orders that President Donald Trump had put in place for higher education institutions. And after that was put on X, Dr. Petsko got a lot of hateful messages. There were some homophobic comments. There were people calling for him to be fired, just essentially doxing him. And he decided to leave the platform altogether because of the harassment.
When they push against you hard enough, it does actually scare you. And it doesn't just scare you, it scares the people around you.
And faculty are kind of seeing his story as almost like a warning sign of what could happen with this syllabus regulation.
I have kind of deliberately made some efforts to mute myself in certain ways because the fear is real and I don't want to have to deal with this backlash, and it is a distraction and it's scary to my colleagues.
There's not only this concern about online harassment, there's also this concern about what if the wrong person gets activated that actually means harm and can actually threaten the safety of faculty on campuses.
What about in terms of generally just figuring out how to deal with all of these policy changes and what that means for them as they're teaching their classes? What's available for them in support when it comes to that?
There isn't a directed support. If you're a faculty member, you could reach out to your chair for guidance, or there's the faculty assembly that advocates for changes with the UNC system, but there's not a dedicated hub of, okay, this syllabi regulation was passed. If you're afraid of online harassment, here's where you can go, at least not a university-sanctioned one.
Do you feel like North Carolina has become a poster child or a focal point for these attacks on academic freedom?
I would say it's shaping up into one. Before, it was kind of like, oh, Florida makes a decision or Texas makes a decision. Let's look at this decision and see if North Carolina is going to follow those coattails. But it seems like now, from the faculty that I've been speaking with, it's the expectation. Before, they felt like there was more of that shared governance or that conversation between faculty and administrators. And now they feel like essentially that tap has been turned off and administrators are coming to them and telling them, this is how it will be. You have no other outlet. Sit there, accept it, teach.
Just ahead, challenges to academic freedom are nothing new. But how these pressures are showing up has never been seen before. We'll get into that after a short break.
If we don't have the freedom as faculty to explore those controversial ideas, to raise arguments and suggestions and come to conclusions that people might disagree with, then we're not able to tell the truth. We can't tell the truth to the general public, we can't tell the truth to other scholars, and we can't tell the truth to our students.
Keith Whittington is a professor at Yale Law School and the director of the university's Center on Academic Freedom and Free Speech. He also published a book recently called You Can't Teach That: The Battle Over University Classrooms. So, as a leading scholar on the topic, I wanted to get Keith's take on the state of academic freedom right now.
It's under extraordinary pressure. There are threats coming from a lot of different directions. Unfortunately, I think the kinds of political and governmental pressure that we're seeing right now was not there 10 years ago.
Would it be fair to say it was like a slow burn for the last decade or so, but then there's been a big jump in the last year or so?
There's been an escalation over time about the kinds of pressures, but the last year or so really has been a dramatic increase.
Keith says that as challenges to academic freedom have grown, two big things have stuck out to him. The first is just the scope and scale of it all.
We've seen a lot more pressure to fire individual faculty in the current situation, but also these large-scale attacks on universities. And so you see entire state systems, for example, that are under pressure. You see entire campuses that are under pressure in ways that has occurred at some points in the past, but not really on quite this scale and certainly not recently.
This pressure is affecting faculty who Keith says have long been in vulnerable positions, like adjunct instructors on short-term contracts. But what's notable is that these changes are also worrying academics that have traditionally been well protected: tenured professors.
Even faculty who might have thought they were pretty secure are now in a pretty fragile state and don't have a lot of confidence that they can ride out particular storms that might surround their speech.
And the second thing is where these challenges are happening, which is essentially everywhere.
We're seeing genuine challenges to academic freedom in both blue states like California and red states like North Carolina or Texas. The kinds of things that politicians are worried about are different. The particular substantive things they're pushing are different. But in both places now, there's just a new willingness to intervene in universities and try to clamp down on speech politicians disagree with and dislike. Part of what gives you whiplash as a faculty member is, depending on which state you're in, the kind of speech you might be punished for looks pretty different. But the willingness to punish you for speech, unfortunately, does seem to be fairly universal. So I think everybody's fairly nervous.
But how did we get here? Keith says the concept of academic freedom began bubbling up in universities more than 100 years ago, when interference and penalties were common.
It's first being advocated by faculty who are trying to push back against, at that point, sometimes political efforts to constrain faculty, but often what they're concerned with are board of trustees and alumni and donors who are pressuring universities to constrain what it is the faculty can do in the classroom. And through most of the 19th century, the general legal understanding as well as in those situations, universities can simply fire the faculty who people find objectionable for one reason or another, and universities frequently did.
So faculty started to push back throughout the early 1900s. They essentially said, no excessive pressure on professors. Don't tell us what we can and can't teach.
They certainly can explore controversial ideas and advance new ideas that were often challenging to conventional wisdom under those circumstances. And faculty were increasingly successful in getting universities to buy into that notion that they needed those protections.
And then, mid-century, in came the heavyweights, the United States Supreme Court.
Since the 1960s, the U.S. Supreme Court has said that academic freedom is protected to some degree by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And as a consequence, there's a further constitutional hurdle for state universities to get over in order to punish faculty for their speech.
As a result, academic freedom became more codified at universities. In the second half of the 20th century, Keith says academic institutions more clearly defined protections for faculty.
You also get the spread of tenure systems that are designed to provide some real teeth to those academic freedom protections. It's one thing to say you have academic freedom. It's another thing to make it hard to fire you as a consequence of controversial speech you might engage in.
But then, with the turn of the millennium, something new emerged that's had a seismic impact on academia: social media.
One consequence of social media has been the fact that the controversial personal opinions of faculty are much more visible to the general public than was once the case. And so we see a lot more speech controversies about the private political speech of faculty than we used to, just because more people can come across that private political speech and often don't like it.
Along with a bigger spotlight on faculty's speech, Keith says social media has allowed critics of universities to organize more easily and much more loudly.
To bring pressure to bear against universities than once might have been the case. So not only does it make the faculty more visible to the larger public, but it also makes it easier for the larger public to push back on faculty than might once been the case.
Trying to manage the turbulent nature of social media is an immense challenge for schools. Pair that with recent pressure from the federal government on funding for universities, and Keith says that's how we've reached this current moment of mass anxiety in academia.
I wish I could say that there was a safe harbor where I'd feel really confident to say, well, if you're at this type of university, you're okay. But unfortunately...
Yeah, I wanted you to give me some good news.
Yeah, unfortunately, I just don't think there's any place where I'd feel really comfortable saying, if you're a faculty at that university, you're fine. There's going to be places where I'd say, if you're at that university, you're at some serious risk. But there's no place right now where I'd say, don't worry about it.
So what's all this mean for the future of the college classroom? Back in North Carolina, higher education reporter Brianna Atkinson says faculty are more likely to reconsider their commitment to a campus.
I've heard from professors who've said, every time something happens, it gives them more of a reason to leave North Carolina. And they see in the future, if things like this keep happening and professors feel constrained and like they can't teach as they are meant to teach, then there's going to be a talent pipeline that North Carolina is going to be missing out on because people are going to move to states where they feel more protected.
But the fate of academic freedom hasn't been decided just yet. Keith Whittington says that among all these pressures is an opportunity to reassert the importance of academic freedom in higher education.
The part of the question that is looming really large at this point is, do those of us who care about universities, notably including faculty, but not only the faculty, can we build a public case in defense of universities about the kind of work we do, about the importance of academic and free speech protections to the kind of work we do? Part of what universities are really confronting right now is that there's a crisis of confidence in the general public and among politicians about whether or not what we do is even valuable. And we're at a crucial moment right now. And it's not at all obvious which way we're going to go as to, do we rebuild this argument on behalf of public universities, or does the public come to the conclusion that universities really need to be radically reformed and reshaped, and we wind up with a very different looking higher education system in the future than what we've had in the recent past?
If you'd like to check out more of Keith Whittington's work and Brianna Atkinson's reporting, we've dropped links in our show notes. This episode of The Broadside was produced by Charlie Shelton Ormond. It was edited by Jared Walker. Our executive producer is Wilson Sayre. This week, we featured audio from CBS News, CBS Boston, WCJB in Gainesville, and the NBC affiliate in Dallas-Fort Worth. The Broadside is a production of WUNC News in North Carolina and is part of the NPR network. If you have feedback or a story idea, you can email us at broadside@wunc.org. If you enjoyed the show, leave us a rating, a review, or share it with a friend. I'm Anissa Khalifa. Thanks for listening, y'all. We'll be back next week.
TV has thousands of free movies and TV shows.
You swear?
If I'm lying, I'm dying.
This is the mindset.
Free.
This is the mantra.
Free.
This is the mindset.
With movies like Interstellar, Dreamgirls, and Gladiator.
Are you not entertained?
And TV shows like Survivor, SpongeBob SquarePants, The Fairly Odd Parents, and Ghosts. Pluto TV is always free.
Huzzah!
Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.